Rejected over her past, she lurks in the shadows. Then the Alpha King presents a deal she cannot resist. The night had no stars. Clouds covered the sky like a heavy blanket, and the moon, once worshipped by the wolf clans, hid its face behind darkness. The forest stood silent, as if even the wind feared to move. In that silence she walked. No one saw her. No one ever did. She moved between shadows like she belonged to them, her steps soft, her breath quiet. Her cloak was dark and worn, blending into the night. Only her eyes, sharp, watchful, and filled with something deeper than fear, gave any sign that she was still human. Once she had a name. Once someone had called her with warmth. Now the world called her something else. Cursed. She stopped near the edge of the forest, where the trees grew thin and the land opened into a broken path leading toward a distant village. Lights flickered far away, small and golden, like hope she could not reach. She did not go closer. She never did. Villages were not safe for her. People were not kind, not anymore. Her fingers tightened slightly under her cloak as she remembered the whispers, the looks. The moment everything changed, she had trusted once. That had been her first mistake. The memory came without warning, sharp like cold wind. A crowded gathering. Laughter, music, the scent of fire and earth, and him, the one who was supposed to choose her, the one who looked at her and then turned away, not just turned away, rejected her, in front of everyone. The silence that followed had been worse than any scream. Then came the whispers, then the accusations. She is wrong. The girl who once smiled easily had disappeared that night. What remained was someone quieter, harder, someone who learned how to survive without being seen. She pulled her cloak tighter and stepped back into the forest. That was her home now, darkness. But even here she was not entirely safe, because the darkness listened to her, and sometimes it answered. A faint movement stirred near her feet. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, curling like soft smoke around her boots. She paused, her body still. It was happening again. She did not call it, she never did, but it came. The shadows moved slowly, as if breathing, as if aware of her presence. They did not harm her, they never had, but they did not feel normal either. They felt alive. She swallowed, forcing herself to stay calm. "Stop," she whispered softly. For a moment nothing changed. Then slowly the shadows pulled back, slipping away into the ground as if they had never been there at all. She exhaled quietly, relief mixed with unease. She did not understand this power, she did not want it. But it was part of her now, like the past she could not escape. A distant sound broke the silence, footsteps, not hers, her body tensed instantly. She stepped behind a tree, her senses sharpening. She listened carefully. More than one person, heavy steps, armored warriors. Her heart beat faster, but her face stayed calm. She had learned this skill well, fear inside, stillness outside. She moved silently, deeper into the forest, keeping low and careful. She knew these woods better than anyone. She could disappear if she needed to, but something felt wrong. The footsteps did not scatter or search blindly. They moved with purpose, toward her, her breath slowed, they knew. Before she could move further, a voice cut through the trees. "Come out!" It was not loud. But it carried power, authority, command. Her body froze. She had heard many voices filled with anger, fear, and hate. This was none of those. This voice was calm, cold, certain. It did not ask, it expected. For a moment she considered running. But something told her it would not matter. Slowly she stepped out from behind the tree. The forest seemed to hold its breath. They stood in a small clearing, several warriors dressed in dark armor, their eyes sharp and alert. But none of them mattered, only one did. He stood at the center, tall, still, unmoving like a statue carved from stone. The Alpha King, she knew without being told. Everyone did. Power surrounded him, not loud, not wild, but controlled, like a storm held tightly within chains. His presence alone made the air feel heavier. His eyes found her instantly, and did not leave. She felt it, that weight, that attention, as if he could see through every layer she had built around herself. But she did not lower her gaze. She had lost many things. Her pride was not one of them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The warriors remained still, waiting. Finally, he stepped forward, one step. That was all it took to shift the space between them. "You are difficult to find," he said. His voice was deep, steady, and controlled. She said nothing. There was no reason to answer. He studied her not like others had, with fear or judgment, but with something sharper, interest. That unsettled her more than anything. "You hide well," he continued. Still, she stayed silent. Her fingers tightened slightly under her cloak, but her face remained calm. He stopped a few steps away from her, close enough to see clearly, far enough to remain in control. "You are not what they say," he said. That made her pause. It was the first unexpected thing he had said. Most people believed the rumors. He did not, or maybe he simply did not care. "And what do they say?" she asked quietly. Her voice was soft but steady. The warriors shifted slightly, surprised she had spoken at all. The Alpha King did not react. "They say you are dangerous," he replied. "Cursed." She held his gaze. "And you?" she asked. For a moment, silence returned. Then something faint, almost invisible, changed in his expression. "I think they are afraid of what they do not understand," he said. Her breath caught slightly. It was not kindness, but it was not rejection either. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to her without fear. That alone made her cautious. People did not approach her without reason, neither did kings. "Why are you here?" she asked. This time her voice carried a hint of sharpness. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a piece of metal old and marked with strange symbols. Her eyes widened slightly. She recognized it. A symbol tied to stories she had heard as a child. Stories of old magic, forbidden magic. He watched her reaction closely. "So you do know," he said, her jaw tightened. "I know enough to stay away from it," she replied. "And yet," he said calmly, "it is tied to you." Her heartbeat quickened. "No," she said firmly, "it is not." But even as she spoke, she felt it. A faint warmth under her skin, a reaction she could not explain. The shadows near her feet stirred again just slightly. His eyes flickered downward. He noticed. Of course he did. "You cannot hide it forever," he said. "I am not hiding," she replied, though the words felt weak. He stepped closer, this time closer than before. Her body tensed, but she did not move. "You are alone," he said. It was not a question, it was a fact. She did not respond. "You have no pack," he continued. "No protection, no place." His words were direct, almost harsh. But not untrue. Still, she lifted her chin slightly. "I survived without them," she said. "Yes," he said. "You did." Another pause, then, "But survival is not the same as living." The words hit deeper than she expected. She did not show it, but he saw something shift in her eyes. "That was enough. I will not harm you," he said. She almost laughed, not out loud, but inside. She had heard promises before, they meant nothing. "I did not ask for safety," she said. "No," he replied, "you did not." Then his voice changed slightly, colder, sharper. "But I am offering something else." Her attention sharpened. This was it, the reason he came. "A deal," he said. The words settled heavily between them. She stayed still, listening. "Serve me," he said. "Follow my command. Stand at my side when I require it." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And in return?" she asked. His gaze did not waver. "I give you power," he said, "a place and the chance to take back everything that was taken from you." Silence. The forest seemed to lean in, listening. Her heart beat faster, not from fear. From something else, temptation, dangerous, quiet temptation. "You think I want revenge," she said. "I think," he replied calmly, "you want a choice." That stopped her, because he was right. She had not been given a choice before, not when she was rejected. Not when she was cast out, not when her life changed. But now someone was offering it, even if the price was unknown, even if the man offering it was dangerous. She looked at him carefully. The Alpha King, a ruler feared by all, a man who controlled everything around him. Why would he need her? That question remained, but she did not ask it, because part of her already knew the answer. It had something to do with the power inside her, the one she feared, the one she did not understand, the one that made the shadows move. Slowly, she lifted her hand. For a second, she hesitated. Then she placed it in his. The moment their skin touched, something shifted. A sharp warmth spread through her wrist. She gasped softly, pulling her hand back. A mark burned into her skin, dark, glowing faintly like living ink. Her eyes widened. "What is this?" She stopped, because he was staring at his own wrist. The same mark, glowing, identical. The air between them changed. He looked at her, not with curiosity now, but with realization, something deeper, something neither of them had expected. The shadows around her rose again, stronger this time, alive, watching, waiting. And for the first time, she felt it clearly. This was not just a deal. It was something far more dangerous. The fortress of the Alpha King rose from the cliffs like a shadowed giant. Its walls were dark stone, scarred by centuries of battles and storms. Every tower seemed alive, watching, waiting. The wind howled through the battlements as if it carried whispers of old wars, old curses, old betrayals. She entered silently. The warriors at the gates paused, recognition and caution in their eyes. They had heard of her, the woman of shadows, the one who had survived alone for years. They did not move to stop her. Their fear was quiet, but it existed. The Alpha King walked ahead, steady and calm. She followed, careful, keeping her distance, yet sensing his presence in every step. He did not speak at first, letting the silence stretch between them, heavy and tense. The corridors of the fortress were long, winding, and dimly lit by flickering torches. Shadows clung to the corners, curling like smoke, as if even the walls were wary of her. She kept her cloak tight, but she did not hide, not from him, not anymore. Finally, he stopped in a large hall. The ceiling arched high above them, carved with scenes of kings and warriors long dead. The floor was cold stone, and in the center lay a map of the kingdom, old and faded. He motioned toward it. "This is where we begin," he said. "There is a curse growing, you know it." She did not answer immediately. She studied the map, the towns, the forests, the rivers that twisted like veins through the land. She had been careful to avoid this place, to remain invisible, and yet here she was. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally. Her voice was steady, but her heart beat fast. "Not what I want," he replied. "What the kingdom needs, what you are meant to do," she frowned. "I am not meant for anything but survival. I have no place here." His gaze hardened, but not with anger. "You have power, you know it. You cannot ignore it, and neither can the world." She swallowed. He was right. She had tried to ignore it for years, tried to live in the shadows, invisible, harmless, but her power had a will of its own. Shadows moved when she did not call them. Winds shifted when she thought nothing of it, and tonight in the forest it had reacted to him. "I do not belong in your wars," she said quietly. "You already do," he said, "whether you like it or not." The weight of his words settled over her like stone. He was not asking. He was stating, and yet there was no threat. Not exactly. For days she stayed in the fortress, moving silently through halls, learning the rhythm of the place. Warriors watched her, some with suspicion, some with awe. Nobles whispered in corners, but no one dared confront her. Not openly. The Alpha King watched her more closely than anyone. Every flicker of emotion on her face, every subtle movement, he noted. He did not try to control her, at least not yet, but he tested her. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, he brought her to the tower. The highest one, where the wind tore at her cloak and the world seemed distant. "Look," he said, gesturing to the lands below. Villages and forests stretched as far as the eye could see, rivers glinting like silver threads. "This is what we protect. This is what you protect." She looked but did not speak. The wind tugged at her hair, and for the first time in years she felt the weight of loneliness settle beside her. "You could walk away," he said softly, almost quietly. "No one could stop you. The shadows would protect you. You are free." She turned to him, eyes narrowing. "And yet you ask me to stay." "Yes," he said, "because you can, because you will, because it matters." She did not answer. Words were not enough, not for the storm building inside her, for the ache of rejection that had followed her all her life. Days turned into nights. Nights into battles of silence. The Alpha King did not push, he watched, he waited. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, a bond began to form, not trust, not friendship, not love, something more fragile, more dangerous. She noticed small things. How his hands tightened around a sword when a minor threat arose. How his gaze softened when no one else was looking. How his voice carried weight not from anger, but from sorrow and responsibility. He noticed things in her, too. The way her eyes flickered when the shadows moved under her command. The way she flinched at sudden sounds, always alert. The quiet moments when she allowed herself to rest, and the shadows seemed to protect her even then. Their bond was silent, sharp, tense. Like two predators circling, wary, calculating, neither fully knew what it was yet. But the kingdom was not patient. Rumors of the curse spread faster than fire. Villages began to report strange occurrences, winds that tore roofs from houses, shadows that whispered in the night, sickness that withered crops. It was subtle but growing, and it always followed her. She could feel it in her bones. The curse was not random. It was drawn to her, and the longer she stayed, the stronger it became. One night in the fortress library, she discovered old texts, books that spoke of magic older than the kingdom itself, of queens and kings who had wielded shadows like blades, of powers that could save or destroy, and she saw her own mark described glowing on the hand of a chosen one, a vessel, a key. The Alpha King appeared behind her, quiet as a shadow. "You found it," he said. She did not turn. "Yes," she whispered, "and I hate it." "Then you must learn to control it," he said, "because the curse will not wait for your choice. It will act whether you are ready or not." Her hands trembled slightly. She closed the book. And if I fail, then the kingdom dies, he said simply, and so do we. She looked up at him, eyes fierce now, not afraid. I will not be a weapon, nor will I ask you to be, he said. I ask you to be yourself. That is the hardest task of all. For hours they stood in silence, two souls bound by fate, by power, by necessity. And yet neither fully trusted the other, until the night came when the curse acted. A village near the edge of the forest burned with a strange fire, one that could not be put out. Shadows moved across the walls, black and alive. The villagers screamed and fled. The Alpha King and his warriors rushed forward. She followed, stepping lightly through the trees, letting the shadows twist and bend around her. She did not command them yet. She let them watch, let them prepare. When they arrived, the fire and darkness recoiled as she stepped into the center of the chaos. Her mark glowed faintly on her wrist, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She raised her hands slightly, and the shadows bent toward her, forming a protective barrier. The Alpha King watched from a few steps away, awe and tension in his eyes. You are stronger than I thought, he said quietly, not taking his eyes off her. She did not answer. She could feel the curse testing her, probing, seeking a weakness. She would not give it one. The fire dimmed, the shadows fell back, but the village was not saved entirely. Crops burned, houses were destroyed, fear remained. She looked at the Alpha King, and for the first time their eyes met fully. No words were needed. He understood what she had done, and so did she. But the bond between them had changed. Not trust, not friendship, but recognition, mutual respect, and something unspoken, fragile, dangerous. The curse was not gone, not even close, and now she knew it had been drawn to her for a reason. Something inside her stirred, a connection to the Alpha King, to the land, to the shadows themselves. And she realized with a chill she could not shake that the deal he offered was never just a deal. It was a bond, one that could not be broken. One that would demand everything from her power, her courage, her heart. And perhaps in time even more. The night came early, heavy with clouds that choked the moonlight. In the forest surrounding the kingdom, shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting over rocks and trees. The wind carried whispers, faint and sharp, as if the earth itself had secrets to tell. She moved swiftly, silently, her cloak flowing like black water behind her. Her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned every movement, every flicker of light. She had left the fortress days ago, though not permanently. She needed distance, space, clarity. The Alpha King's fortress loomed in the distance, dark and formidable, but tonight it felt like a cage rather than a sanctuary. The bond he had offered, the deal, was no longer a choice for her. It had begun to weigh heavily on her chest, a quiet pressure she could not ignore. For the first time, she felt something she had not felt in years, doubt. She had been strong in the shadows, surviving, unseen, untouchable. But with him, everything changed. His presence, his gaze, the calm certainty of his words, they did not command her, and yet they reached inside her, stirring emotions she could neither name nor control. And that frightened her. She stopped near a river that cut through the forest like a silver ribbon, reflecting clouds that raced across the sky. The water whispered against the rocks, a gentle reminder that life continued even in chaos. She knelt and touched the surface, watching ripples spread across the reflection of the clouds. Her own reflection stared back, pale and wary, eyes glimmering with shadows. She thought of the villages burned, the whispers of the curse, the power that pulsed faintly on her wrist. That power was not hers alone. It belonged to the land, to the shadows, to forces older than the kingdom itself. She had tried to control it. She had tried to obey the Alpha King, to follow his command. And yet each time she did, the shadows reminded her. Control was never fully hers. A rustle in the trees made her pause. She rose slowly, cloaked in darkness. She was not afraid. Fear had not guided her for years, but caution was instinct. "Do not hide," a voice called. Not distant, not threatening, but calm and unmistakably familiar. Her heart clenched. She did not turn. She already knew who it was. The Alpha King stepped from the tree line, his silhouette dark against the dim light. His presence alone altered the air around her, drawing her attention, forcing her focus. "You should not have come," she said, her voice quiet yet firm. "I should not," he replied, stepping closer. "Or do you mean you should not have left?" She met his gaze. He was calm as always, yet she saw something in his eyes she rarely witnessed. Uncertainty, not fear, not anger, but a vulnerability small and hidden beneath layers of authority and control. "I needed to think," she said, "to see clearly, to decide." "And?" he asked. His voice was patient, though edged with a subtle tension. She turned her gaze to the river again, watching the water ripple across the reflection of the clouds. "I see now," she said softly, "that I am not meant to follow anyone, not you, not them, not the curse. Not fate itself." He studied her carefully. "Then what are you meant to do?" Her eyes met his, hard and unyielding. "Decide for myself." For a long moment neither spoke. Only the river moved, only the wind whispered, only the shadows stirred, and then he stepped closer. His presence pressed on her like gravity, heavy yet familiar. "You are not safe alone," he said. "Not from the curse, not from the world, not from yourself." "I know," she replied, "and yet I must try." The distance between them was small now, too small to ignore. She could see the faint pulse of his mark, glowing slightly in the dim light, matching her own. That bond they shared, once only a deal, now felt like a chain, invisible but unbreakable. "I will not use you as a weapon," he said quietly, "but you cannot run from this or from me." She shook her head, frustrated, conflicted, and yet she could not deny the truth. The bond was real, their power intertwined. And yet she did not belong in his fortress, nor under his command. She belonged to herself. That realization hit harder than any battle. Days passed in the forest, alone but aware of every movement, every shift in the shadows. The curse began to stir more violently now, testing her limits. Small fires flared in villages nearby. Shadows moved unnaturally. The wind carried voices she did not recognize. She knew the Alpha King had tried to help. She knew he had sent warriors to protect the kingdom. And yet, she felt a bitter anger rising. He had not told her everything. The truth of her past, the reason the curse followed her, the full extent of her power, it had all been hidden. And she realized with sharp clarity that he had never come to save her. He had come to use her. The thought burned like ice through her veins. She clenched her fists. She had been manipulated, drawn into a web that was never hers. And now she would break free. She left the river behind, moving deeper into the mountains where the forests grew wild and untamed. She did not look back. She did not allow herself to think of him, not yet. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of freedom, but freedom was heavy. Because with each step away from the fortress, the curse followed, invisible and relentless. Shadows moved more sharply around her, bending toward her, whispering in voices she did not recognize. The air was thick with expectation, danger, and something old, something waiting. She reached a cave carved from stone and ice, high in the cliffs. It was hidden, remote, safe enough for now. She lit a small fire, warming her hands against it. Her reflection flickered in the rock walls, haunted and pale. She allowed herself to rest, closing her eyes for the first time in days. And then she felt it, a presence, not physical but powerful, not visible but undeniable. The Alpha King, he had followed her, she had known he would. Even if she fled, even if she ran, the bond would not allow separation. The air shifted, and she realized he was not alone. His warriors surrounded the cave's edge, careful, respectful. He had come prepared, but he had come for her, not for battle. "You cannot hide," he said, his voice low, steady, echoing slightly against the stone. She rose, cloak wrapped tightly, eyes burning with defiance. "I do not belong in your wars," she said. "I do not belong to your kingdom. I do not belong to your cause." "And yet," he said, stepping closer, "you cannot ignore it." The shadows at her feet writhed and pulsed. They moved toward him but did not harm him. They recognized him. They acknowledged him. A bond stronger than words. "I am not your weapon," she said again. "Nor your prisoner. I do not ask you to be either," he replied. "I ask only that you face what you are and what you can become." She shook her head, frustrated, fearful, conflicted. "I am not ready. I will not be used. I will not follow." The Alpha King paused. His gaze softened slightly. "You have always been alone," he said. "I see it, I respect it, but the curse, it does not respect solitude, it does not wait, and it is coming for you." Her heart quickened. She had felt it, the stirrings, the whispers, the way the shadows pulsed at her mark. The curse was awakening, growing stronger, drawn by her power and the bond they shared. She turned, ready to flee deeper into the mountains, ready to confront the curse alone. But then she heard a voice not her own, carried on the wind. "You cannot escape. The bond calls, the power calls, and the kingdom waits." Her chest tightened. She could not ignore it. She could not run forever. And yet she would not return to him, not yet, not as a servant. Not as a pawn. She would face the curse on her own terms. She stepped into the shadows of the cave, letting the darkness rise around her. The shadows moved in response, bending and twisting as if alive. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting herself feel the power she had denied for so long. The bond pulsed faintly against her wrist, a reminder of the Alpha King, of their connection, of what they had become to each other. She clenched her fists. She would not allow control, she would not allow manipulation, but she could not deny that a part of her ached. For the first time in years, she realized she had trusted someone, and that trust had been broken, intentionally or not. Anger and determination surged through her. She would face the curse. She would survive. She would control her power. And one day she would return, not as the shadow they had feared, but as something far greater. The storm had come. The sky was torn with lightning, the clouds churning like a living beast. Winds shrieked through the ruined villages, uprooting trees and scattering debris across the land. Shadows twisted unnaturally across the hills, moving as if alive, whispering in voices that were older than the kingdom itself. She stood on a cliff overlooking the chaos, cloak whipping around her, eyes glinting with a fierce determination. For years she had fled, hidden, survived. But the curse, ancient, relentless, hungry, had followed her. It had grown stronger with every day she had spent alone, testing her, tempting her, calling her toward destruction. She was not afraid, not anymore. The mark on her wrist pulsed with light, dark and alive, a constant reminder of the bond she shared with the Alpha King. That bond had brought her both fear and strength. At first she had thought it was control, ownership, command, but now she knew it was not about submission, it was about connection. Far below, in the center of the kingdom, the Alpha King rode forward with his warriors, moving through the chaos with steady authority. His eyes scanned the land constantly, seeking her, watching her, aware that without her, the kingdom would fall. The bond pulsed faintly in her veins. She felt him, not near, not touching, but present in the way only they could feel each other. It was a strange comfort, a tether between two souls shaped by loss, rejection, and power. The curse had taken many forms by now. Shadows that attacked without reason, winds that tore through villages, fires that erupted without explanation. Each one tested her control. Each one whispered that she was not strong enough, that she was doomed to fail. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The shadows around her paused. They bent toward her will, listening, ready to obey. She felt their pulse, the weight of the curse, the pull of the bond, and the history of the land itself. She was ready. The first wave came. Shadows erupted across the valley below, tall and writhing, like blackened trees come to life. They moved with malice, bending the weak minds of the villagers who had not fled. Fire flared in their presence, unnatural and hot, consuming everything in its path. She did not hesitate. She stepped forward, raising her hands. The shadows around her responded instantly, twisting and forming into a barrier that shielded the villagers from the dark surge. Her mark burned bright, and she felt the power surge through her, not her own fear, not her past, but something greater. The Alpha King's voice carried through the storm, steady, commanding, yet gentle. "Focus," he shouted. "Do not let it overwhelm you. You are stronger than it knows." She felt him through the bond, his presence guiding her, steadying her, not controlling her, not commanding her, simply supporting her. She lifted her hands higher, letting the shadows bend around her. They obeyed. The curse recoiled against the strength of her power, but she did not falter. She had faced rejection, betrayal, loneliness, fear, and she had survived them all. The first wave shattered, dissipating into nothingness, but she knew it was not over. From the darkness above, a new force emerged. The curse itself, ancient and wrathful, manifested in a form both beautiful and terrifying. A figure of shadow and flame, eyes glowing with hunger, mouth whispering names she had not spoken for years. It called to her. "You are mine," it hissed, a voice that filled the storm. "You cannot resist me, you belong to the shadows, you belong to me." She stood her ground. "I am not yours," she said, her voice carrying over the wind, calm and strong. "I belong to myself, and I decide my own fate." The curse laughed, a sound that shook the earth and made the warriors below stagger. "Do you think you can stop me? Alone?" "You are wrong," she said. "I am not alone." The Alpha King appeared beside her suddenly, moving through the storm with the strength of a man who had faced loss and power and refused to bow. His presence was steady, a calm center in the chaos. The bond pulsed between them, stronger than ever. They did not touch, and yet they acted as one. Shadows around her responded to his strength as well as hers. They were two forces united, not in ownership, not in command, but in understanding. The curse surged forward, a wave of darkness that threatened to consume the land. She raised her hands, summoning the shadows around her. They twisted, bending the curse's attacks back toward itself. The power was immense, testing her limits, threatening to overwhelm her, but she did not falter. She drew on every moment of rejection she had endured, every whisper, every fear, every shadow that had protected her when she was alone. She drew on the memory of the villages, the people she could protect, and the bond she now shared with the Alpha King, a bond not of command but of trust. The curse screamed, twisting in pain as her shadows held firm. Fire met darkness. Wind collided with wind. Shadows clashed with shadows, and in the center she stood unmoving, glowing faintly with the mark on her wrist, her power alive, her will unbroken. The Alpha King stepped closer, raising his sword not to strike but to focus the energy of the storm. "We end this," he shouted. "Together," she said, and together they channeled their power, combining the strength of human will and shadow magic. The curse shrieked and convulsed, then finally began to unravel, dispersing into the winds, leaving the land scarred but alive. The storm calmed. The wind softened. Shadows fell back to the ground, bending gently around her feet, silent and obedient. She fell to her knees, exhausted but alive. Her mark glowed faintly, pulsing with quiet strength. The bond was still there, connecting her to him, but it was no longer a chain. It was a tether of choice, of understanding, of shared strength. He knelt beside her, his hand hovering near hers, not touching but offering support. For the first time, he looked at her not as a vessel, not as a tool, but as an equal. "You controlled it," he said softly. "You faced it and you won." She looked up at him, her chest rising and falling, hair damp from the storm. "Not alone," she said. "I did not do it alone." He nodded. "No, we did it together." The kingdom below was in ruins, but alive. Villages burned, forests scarred, rivers twisted, but life remained. People would rebuild. The curse would no longer hunt them. The shadows that once whispered threats now whispered protection, quiet guardians bound by her strength and her choice. She rose, finally, her knees straight, her back tall. The cloak that had hidden her for so long flowed in the gentle wind. She was no longer the woman in the shadows. She was something stronger, something unafraid. The Alpha King stood beside her. For the first time, they met fully, without need for words, without threat, without command. Their bond had transformed. It was no longer a deal, no longer a chain. It was choice, respect, and recognition. She touched the mark on her wrist lightly. It pulsed softly, glowing faintly. She knew it would always remain, a reminder of the power she had, the bond she had, and the life she had reclaimed. "Was it ever just a deal?" she whispered. "No," he said, his eyes steady on hers. "It was always meant to be more." The wind carried their words across the scarred land, gentle and soft. Shadows bent at their feet, calm and obedient. And in that moment, as lightning faded from the horizon and clouds slowly parted, the first stars appeared. Pale and distant, yet brilliant. A reminder that even in darkness, light returned. She smiled faintly for the first time in years. The weight of the past, the rejection, the fear, it no longer ruled her. She had faced it, embraced it, and transformed it. The Alpha King extended his hand, a simple gesture, not command, not demand. She took it. And for the first time they walked forward together, not ruler and subject, not weapon and vessel, but two souls bound by choice, trust, and the power to shape their own destiny. The kingdom had survived. They had survived. And the shadows, once a threat, now danced quietly around them, guardians of a new beginning. The storm had passed. The bond remained. And in the quiet of the night, with stars above and wind at their backs, they finally understood. Redemption was not just for the kingdom. It was for them, for their pasts, and for the power they had learned to control together. The future awaited, scarred, uncertain, yet full of possibility, and they would face it side by side.